Welcome to the Project Violet podcast. My name is Daniel Lay,
And I'm Carrie Maselli.
and here we are on episode, I think it's 14 now.
Ooh,
Can you believe
really?
it?
I was
Yeah.
curious about what you were going to say.
Honestly, I think I lost count because I think we have some in the hopper too. So let's just go with 14.
I think that sounds great.
Okay, cool. Well, today we are talking about meetings. It's something that
Yes.
we've brought up in our community, the Leadership Lab, and we did a survey on Monday about kind of why meetings fail and different options. And we have two really good ones that we want to talk about today.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
Carrie, you put up that survey. So, do you want to? What were your thoughts when you were putting it up in the options?
Oh, I really debated whether to put an all of the above option. Like, so the question is, what's like the most, I'm can't remember exactly the wording, but it's like, what's the most frustrating thing about meetings at work?
Hmm.
And we had a couple people say, like, excuse me, all of the above, in terms of the things that annoy us about meetings. It feels like it's a universal experience that we all share this frustration with meetings or
Yeah.
unproductive meetings, right? Like,
Yes.
certainly there are some meetings that really do add value and move the needle, but
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of reasons why meetings don't work out, but we're gonna touch on the first two today. So again,
yeah.
the topic today is why most meetings fail and how good leaders fix them.
Hmm.
And today's topics we're going to go through scenarios, and the first one is when nothing gets decided in meetings. I think everyone's experienced that. So we'll walk through a scenario, and then Carrie and I will talk about kind of what we think can be done. But there's obviously a lot of different paths you can go. Scenario two is going to be when there's no clear purpose.
Hmm.
And I'm sure all of us have been in that scenario before.
Oh my
And
gosh, yes.
then we'll round it out with just some best practices and some thoughts on how you can run meetings, especially if you're the one in charge and owning it and facilitating it. So there we go. You ready, Carrie? I'll
I'm
jump into
ready.
scenario one. All right. So
Let's hear it.
scenario one, the meeting where nothing gets decided. I'll just read through the scenario really quick. You've been attending a recurring project meeting for the past few weeks. Each time the conversation circles around the same topic. People share updates, ask questions, and brainstorm ideas. But by the end of the meeting, nothing gets actually decided. So
Mhm.
today it's happening again. You're in the meeting, discussion is drifting, different opinions are being shared, and the clock is ticking down. You're not the meeting owner and you're not facilitating, but you can already tell the meeting is going and it's going to end in the same way. No clear decision, no next steps. What should you do in that moment?
And by the way, if you're like me, you're sitting there watching the minutes tick by and just getting
Yeah.
more and more agitated,
Yeah. You're
right?
like, we're doing this again.
Again. And you're
Yeah.
thinking about all the other things you could be doing.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this is when meetings don't work out, it's really a big waste of time, and everyone
Hmm.
understands that and gets frustrated.
Yes.
Um, so maybe I'll start, and then Carrie, you can kind of riff on some of these
I
ideas
love
too.
it. Yeah. I want to hear you have great ideas and how to
Yes.
navigate these things.
So in this, what I want to start with is kind of trying to figure out why that's happening, especially when there's big decisions that need to be made. And usually for me, in my experience, it comes down to kind of two or three things. Number one is fear. I think a lot of people are scared to make decisions because they don't want to own the outcomes and they don't want to be the one that says, "Hey, I've made this decision. Let's move forward."
Yeah.
So I think a lot
Especially
of
if the
it's yeah,
culture, right? Like that's the
yeah.
culture of the organization too that plays into it. Sure.
Exactly. So everyone's kind of waiting for someone else to make the decision, or they're always kind of defaulting to someone else to make the decision. Number two, for lack of better words, I just said laziness. So I
Hmm.
think a lot of times people are just happy jumping from one meeting to another and just, talking and not doing. And unfortunately, that could be a cultural thing as well.
And
But
quite the indictment, by the
yeah, yeah.
way. It's
I
true
know.
though. It's very
Not
true.
naming
Yeah.
names, but
Yeah. Right.
a lot of people I think are just okay jumping around from meeting to meeting and talking, giving their thoughts. And then, it feels like you're doing a lot of work, but at the same time, work's not getting done because you're not making decisions.
That's right. Talking doesn't get us the work
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
And the last one is maybe a lack of information. So maybe sometimes
Hmm.
you're coming to the meeting and you don't have enough information to make a decision, but no one's doing the work to actually, get the information and kind of lay it out for everyone to understand what needs to be done.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of three reasons.
Okay.
Um, but for me, I think if I was in the meeting, number one is I would call out a deadline and why I think that deadline needs to be where that decision needs to be made. And a lot of times, especially if you're not owning it or facilitating it, you can kind of position that through questions. So if there's a project manager in there that's kind of facilitating the meeting, you can just ask the question, "Hey, can I ask a question about, Mr. or Mrs. Project Manager? When do you think this decision needs to be made, based on all the other activity in the project plan?"
Mm-hmm.
So I think once if the project manager can't answer that question, then I think that's immediately the next step. It's like, okay, I know we have to make this decision, but we don't know when we have to make a decision, and that might be something that we need to execute on like
Well, and
now.
that's just, you're exactly right, because that's just like kicks it down the can down the road, right?
Right.
If there's no sort of deadline, everybody's comfortable just being like, well, we'll decide next time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So having a deadline, I think, always helps move the needle. So that could be something that you can ask the question. If there's no clear answer, you can volunteer to work with the project manager to come up with a deadline, and back it up with specific reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I said name the default decision. So, and the due date, it becomes official. So I always like to, if there's a decision, you always lay out kind of the decisions one, two, three, and
Mm-hmm.
do nothing is always a decision. So
Sure.
and that usually becomes the default decision when you reach the due date. So it's like, hey, we need to make a decision on this. If we don't make it by this date, our decision is to do nothing about this. And here are the ramifications. Um, so once you present that and everyone kind of agrees that that is actually one of the options, and if we don't make a decision by this point, this becomes the default decision, then I think it kind of drives people towards, okay, we got to make a decision together, because we don't want it to default, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something that everyone agrees to. Um, and then the last thing I said is, a lot of times, unfortunately, you have, especially if you're an emerging leader or you're someone who is like, who cares a lot about what's going on, you have to be the driver of the decision. And even if you don't have the authority, you can do that in different ways. I think it is more work on you, but having a lot of meetings before the meeting. So if hey, I know this is probably frustrating advice for a lot of people, but
It
it
is,
it
yeah.
it, it actually is required a lot of the time, especially when there's a lot of politics. So you're meeting with all the potential decision makers in the room before the actual meeting, and you're talking with them and having them in the privacy of their office, or just in a one-on-one conversation, kind of driving them towards a decision point, and then kind of circling around, um, to the different decision makers so that everyone's on the same page. And then the meeting to make the decision official becomes more of a ceremony to say, hey, we've talked about this, everyone's kind of in agreement, we're going to make the decision now. And unfortunately, sometimes that is just extra work that you have to do to make sure that the decision gets done and in a timely manner, as you are going to each person and driving that decision with them, and having those kind of side conversations so that when you get to the official meeting, the decision is pretty much already made and you're just kind of rubber stamping it at that
Mm-hmm.
point. So those are my
Gosh.
thoughts.
I mean, you said it right. That's frustrating advice. It is something though that you know what it makes me think of? I immediately thought of those same people, Daniel, who are having those pre-meetings and driving the decision from the back end, even though they have no ownership over anything, but they just really are motivated to be productive, right, and achieve some sort of outcome. They're the same people who did all the work in the group projects in high school
Yeah.
in college, right? Like they're the ones who are just, and it's you and me. It's the two of us. It's the
Yeah.
people in our community. It's the people who are driven and really want to drive, towards specific outcome and get things done and not waste their time. They're the ones who are having to take on all of this extra work in order to get there. It's like never ending, never.
Yeah. I feel like most of the work that I've done when I've led projects is that it's like managing politics and then driving decisions, because sometimes, especially if it's fear based, a lot of times it helps when you go to someone privately and say like, hey, I talked to X, Y, and Z, and all of them are thinking this is the right decision. What are your thoughts? And they feel more empowered to say,
Mm-hmm.
oh yes, I agree with that, when they know other people have
Mm-hmm.
kind of agreed to it as well. But yeah, it is a lot of work.
That culture of consensus, that we talk about, where there are organizations where that's just people fear making the decision, like sticking their neck up and actually being the one to rubber stamp something. It's really a tricky thing to navigate.
Yeah.
And you're much better at navigating the politics than I am. I've had to do it and I will do it if it's required, for me to get something done. But boy, do I hate it. I mean, I'm not saying you like it. Of course you don't, but you're just better at it. I think you have more experience. navigating it too. It's just so tricky. Like for if I had my druthers, I just sit in the meeting and be like, okay, why are we all here? Like we talked about this last week. What do we do? How do we make a decision today to move on? I like your advice. I think I wish we didn't have to
Do that. Yeah.
do it, right? But I think the only thing I would add to that is that yeah, I would go probably to the meeting owner and maybe not do that. I'm not saying that I wouldn't do what you were doing. I think it's
Mm,
good advice. Please know that.
yeah.
But I think I would just save myself the trouble of having to go to everyone and just go to the meeting owner and say, how can I help? It seems like we're not really moving the needle. I'd like to help. Right.
Yeah.
What might we talk about or do, that'll get us to where we need to make that decision the next time we meet?
That's a good point. I'd say that's a mandatory step too, because you don't want to step on their toes too, right? So
Right.
that if they found out you're going around and trying to like
Right.
have
Oh,
side
that's a good
meetings
point.
without them, yeah. So
Mhm.
yeah, to your point, I think that's probably step one is going to the meeting owner and saying like, hey, how can I help? These are some thoughts. Like maybe
Yeah.
both of us can go to each of these people to try to get some consensus.
Yes, or split it up. Like
Yeah,
there's a group of
yeah.
six,
You go
we
to
each
them.
talk to
Yeah,
three.
yeah.
Yeah. I think
Mhm.
that's a really cool way to collaborate with the meeting owner. Cause here's the thing, like they're probably somebody who's going to react a little they're going to react in some way to you coming in to try to help because if they haven't already realized that nothing's getting done and done something about it themselves,
Mhm.
they're going to feel a little defensive when you're the one coming in,
Yeah,
right?
you're
To
almost
try to
calling them out a bit.
you are. That's
Yeah.
right. So
So
if it's more collaborative,
yeah, coming in, it's like, hey, how can I help?
how
And
can I help? I think
yeah.
that is always, name the problem, right? Which is, it seems
Mhm.
like we're talking about the same thing week after week.
Yeah.
How can I help
Yeah.
the group make a decision or help you drive toward a decision? I
Yeah.
think that's in keeping that person, like on the pedestal, if you will.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say too that I really appreciate about your approach, I really like that you thought of the root cause first and like the why,
Mhm.
behind it. Like that really then drives us to this place of curiosity. We're starting there by saying, what questions can I ask to get to, the outcome that we're driving toward? Like sometimes I think for me, when you were presenting that scenario, I think I went right into reaction in my brain and like, oh, I'm just going to, in my mind, I thought I'm going to go talk to the meeting owner, right?
Mhm.
Offline and
Yep.
figure out how I might help, but taking that beat and thinking, okay, what's really going, like what's behind or beneath all of this?
Yeah. Mhm.
I think that's a really important step that a lot of us miss.
Yeah, because once you name the root cause, you can be a lot more methodical in how
Mhm.
you approach it, and sometimes different root causes require different action. So, yeah,
They do.
that's a
Yes,
good
that's
point.
right. Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. I'm glad that you said that.
Cool. All right. Do you want to jump to scenario two?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. This one is the meeting with no clear purpose. So here we go. Every Tuesday morning, you're required to attend a weekly status meeting. It takes more than an hour right in the middle of your most productive time of day. Everyone goes around the room sharing updates, but most of the information could easily have been captured in a short written update or email. Yeah, you start to feel like the
Yeah.
meeting doesn't really have a clear purpose. It's just
Yeah.
become a standing habit on the calendar. And the meeting is owned and facilitated by your boss. And the expectation is that everyone attends.
Hmm.
So, as a leader on the team, what should you do? Do you want me to go again? I
Yeah, I
can
really
start.
do like because again, you just have a different approach that is more methodical, to use your word, and I think that is really helpful to people. And then I can, really maybe just build on
Yeah.
what you share.
So I think the thing to think about in this scenario is that your boss is the one that owns it and facilitates it. So there is some kind of, you have to be careful around here. And a lot of times I think bosses do this because this is their way to get information. So
Hmm.
they have the huge status meetings where everyone has to attend, and then you have to wait your turn, and you have to sit on it for an hour, maybe two
Oh,
hours, and then you have like
yeah.
a 10-minute slot where you give your update.
If you
Um,
even get to your slot, right? If
yeah.
you're at the end,
Oh yeah, and
anyway, yeah,
sometimes yeah, you join a meeting and it doesn't get to your project, so then because you're a lower priority, so you're sitting there literally doing nothing,
doing nothing,
or
right?
everyone's on there kind of multitasking, so it's kind of a waste of time.
Right.
Which is kind of where I was thinking about it. So my thought was um, outline the true cost and the perceived benefit, and this is again a separate conversation with your boss, and maybe it's
Like
something that
offline, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
offline, and you
Yeah.
you kind of and maybe get some consensus with other people that are in the meeting too. Um, but a lot of times what I like to do is actually put a dollar amount on a meeting.
Mm.
And there is a way to do that where you can figure out the internal hourly cost of every employee or everyone who's on that call. And then you add up the dollars and say, hey, every time we meet for an hour or 2 hours, it's costing the company like these thousands of dollars because all of
Mhm.
us, this is
Mhm.
what it costs. It's a lot easier in consulting because you have an hourly rate.
There's a
So
bill
it's,
rate.
yeah,
Right.
there's a
Right.
bill rate. So
Hmm.
you can just say like, hey, these are some of our most expensive subject matter experts. They cost this much per hour. And when they come and sit here for an hour, we're as a consulting firm, we're billing you this much,
Hmm.
and they're doing nothing in this meeting. So sometimes just putting the true cost out there, and then comparing it to the perceived benefit. So sometimes the boss thinks, hey, everyone's getting a lot of value out of this because they're hearing what other projects are going on and they're hearing other issues and they can collaborate together. And I think in theory, that's a great thought and a great
Yeah.
idea. But a lot of time it's not a true benefit, it's a perceived benefit. So I think kind of outlining the two things together. The second thing I was thinking was just gathering feedback, and there could be different ways you can go about it. I think an anonymous survey, and you could present it
Always
as,
anonymous.
yeah,
Thank you
always
for saying that.
anonymous,
Yep.
yeah, and just asking your boss, hey, we have all these different meetings. Maybe we should throw out a survey for each of them and see what people are getting out of it, how we can run it better, what's the value that people are getting out of it. And when it's anonymous, I think a lot of people will be a little more candid about how they actually feel about meetings, and then that's where you'll see. Um, maybe the boss has something in their mind of the value that everyone's getting. And then when they get that survey back, it'll be more clear that it's kind of a waste of time for everyone. So,
Well, and I
mm,
like this one is so hard for me because it's like I automatically go to this place where the boss is like somehow like checking a box or being like, look, I'm doing something
yeah,
by having this meeting, right? That's affecting all these people in this really negative way because it's taking this valuable time away, from them to be doing other things. So in these scenarios that you shared, and I think it's good advice, you would go to your boss. These are conversations you're having with your boss. Like, hey, I've been thinking about this 10 a.m. meeting we have every Tuesday and wondering, and that again, it's curiosity, right? Wouldn't you start there first when you're talking to the boss? Like, tell me what you think of the
yeah.
meeting. Like, what do you see as the benefits of this meeting? And
I
like
think
getting
that's
them to tell you first.
yes.
Yeah.
That's always the best way to start.
Yes.
How did you think that meeting went? Like in scenario one, I think that's a great question for
Yes.
the project manager. And then this one is just like, hey, tell me about, the meeting and your thoughts behind it,
The purpose of it. I
the
mean, I think
purpose.
again, like all these, we were talking about this earlier too, and like this idea, like all of these, anytime we approach any sort of scenario, and we get asked a lot, for advice on how do I navigate this particular, sometimes universally experienced scenario at work, right? We're all in some kind of version of this. And it's like, our advice a lot of times, and this is why I really appreciate yours and I like how you approach these things and wanted you to go first because my approach or advice is always going to assume that the other person is emotionally intelligent, Daniel, and like they're going to approach you as an adult in like this mature way that's like, oh, wow, thank you for bringing that up. This is
Hmm.
interesting to consider, right? Or I appreciate your perspective. But that's not always the case. Like you might have a boss who gets super defensive or doesn't like that you're bringing up, that
Yeah.
their meeting is a waste of your time.
Yeah. And that's how they and that's how they operate sometimes. Um,
Right.
and actually that leads to so I had a third thing in here and it was provide an alternative. Always provide options
Oh,
of
yeah. Let's
something
hear it.
else
Yeah.
that makes more sense. And I think it might be over multiple conversations and always start with, to your point, asking the question of, the purpose they think the meeting is and the value. But I think once you outline the true costs, the perceived benefits, and then you actually give the actual feedback of all the attendees, um, provide an alternative that makes sense, I think, for the most people involved. And a lot of times, for these stats reports, it could be an observation of how these meetings go. It's like, hey, I can tell that you usually walk into this meeting with about 2 to 3 priorities that you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And we spend most of the time talking about those 3 projects or these 3 issues or whatever. Um, you know, maybe before we go to that meeting, you kind of know what the priorities are and you share those priorities with everyone. And if anyone who is not part of those projects, they can bow out of the meeting
That's
and come up with
exactly,
an
yes.
alternative.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
And
Yes.
then
Make it drop. Mm-hmm.
everyone else who's dropped, their responsibility is to give you a written update or an email that just says, hey,
There you
these are
go.
the top 3 things that are going on my project that I think you should know. Um, and
Or
maybe
even
this,
it's like a
yeah,
shared document somewhere, right? Where they could
yeah.
add in their update for the week or whatever.
Yeah, and it's always good to come with an alternative that gives the leader or whoever is running the meeting what they want and it fits the purpose and the value that they're getting out of it. So, and there's always different ways that you can approach it. But yeah, I think giving some alternatives that make sense for the most people, including yourself, is a great way to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that idea so much because it actually goes along with because my advice generally, this is a status. We're speaking specifically about a status update, meeting that is recurring. Though for any meeting where we're not sure on why we're there, an agenda serves one purpose, right? Which is to lay out, the things that we want to achieve. But there also needs to be at the start of any meeting some sort of purpose statement made by the owner of the meeting to say, we are here today to do X, to make a decision on Y, like whatever, and then decide who owns that next step or something, like to be very clear. Cause I think then you can pull it back when the conversation starts to drift and you can come back to like, we're all here for this, reason. Let's keep us, focused. It's really tricky when it's recurring.
Yeah.
I like how you're navigating that.
Yeah. And yeah, I think a lot of times too, and you have to it depends on the leader. Like sometimes they don't even know what the purpose of the meeting is. They just kind of
Which,
figure it out as they hear updates. They
right.
just kind
Which,
of
I mean,
cherry
that's
pick
so
stuff.
frustrating, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And for that, that probably needs a little more coordination. So you can work with, coworkers or co-leaders that are underneath that boss and just say like, hey, let's work with him to figure out or get him to define his agenda before that meeting, and then we can coordinate amongst our teams of who needs to be there.
Who needs to be there?
Yeah.
I really love the idea of, working with your peers. Again, we're always going to go to this place of collaboration. You have other people who are feeling the same way about this seemingly wasted hour, perceived wasted, depending on right how it goes each week.
Hmm.
And so when you can collaborate with your peers to say, let's fix this together, the
Yeah.
likelihood of coming together with this messaging for the boss to say like, hey, we solved for this. Like we were finding that we weren't
Yeah.
always needed every week.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't know that, or whatever, right? Like there's a way to say it to the boss that I think gives the boss this really easy way to like be like, oh, let's try that,
Yeah.
this new way of doing this.
Hmm. And it's great if the boss is open to it, and if they're not, I mean, there is different ways you can approach it to like to get to the same outcome. It's just it probably is a little more delicate, and you have to do it over a longer period of time. Of
Mm-hmm.
hey, let's try this little piece, and then let's try this little piece, and eventually they'll get to the same
Mm-hmm.
understanding as everyone. But yeah, I think when you collaborate with your co-leaders, that's always a better way to go about it.
Yes, like I think what's really key is you just used this word a couple of times, and I did too a moment ago. Is this word try? I think
Mhm.
whenever we're asking for a shift in behavior, whether it's someone who reports to us and we're giving them feedback about some kind of consequence they're gonna
Mhm.
receive down the road if they keep behaving in that way, or even this is a behavior we're trying to shift the behavior of the boss to say, or the behavior in the meeting, right? We can look at it a couple different ways, but this idea of trying something feels much more digestible and approachable, and you're much more willing to get someone on
Mhm.
board with the trying, right? Instead of saying, hey, can we just do this next
Yeah.
week? It's like, well, no, we
Yeah,
can't.
no, and
We're
no
going
one
to do it
wants to
this way,
be. Yeah,
right? Instead, it's
yeah.
this word. That word goes a long way, wouldn't you say? I mean, you
Hmm.
used it organically. I use it deliberately
Hmm.
because I just know people, it's better received.
Yeah, and people, yeah, it's always good to try, and your boss might actually appreciate that because they, maybe no one's come up to them with different alternative options that they can try out.
Maybe they're really just sitting there thinking that everybody loves that meeting. I don't
Yeah,
know. I mean,
that
right?
is a
Like our
possibility.
perception rarely matches that of others.
Yeah, that is a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, so that feedback is appropriate, and
Mhm.
um I like the ideas to try.
There you go. All right. So to recap, so
Yes.
scenario one, the meetings where nothing gets decided. Some of the advice that we talked about, go to the root cause. Is it fear,
Hmm.
laziness? Is it lack of information? Call out the deadline and why, and position it with questions. And go to the owner first and ask them if you can help. Name the default decision and the due date. It becomes official, and then you might have to get to this point. But if you want to drive the decision yourself, have the meetings before the meeting, so then it becomes more of a rubber stamp
Yeah.
to get that done.
Or get the buy-in from the boss to have the meetings.
Exactly.
That's the big, yeah.
There you go.
Hmm.
Scenario two, meeting with no clear purpose. go to your boss and see if you can try some new things. I think part of that messaging includes outlining the true cost. So put a dollar amount on it, and talk about all the lost efficiency within your workflow. Um, Talk about the perceived benefit and the true benefit, and you can gather feedback to get that information through anonymous surveys, or it could be anecdotal, and then provide an alternative that
Mhm.
you can try out. It could be little
It's a good
pieces of
try.
it, not a whole solution just
Yeah.
yet, but give it a try and give your boss some alternatives to think about.
Yeah, and I would add curiosity is always our friend, right? Asking questions to, get more information about these scenarios. I mean, you're already doing that by trying to get the root cause, but even when you're
Mhm.
approaching these conversations, ask questions, rather than go in making statements,
Yep.
right? It's like that where you feel certain about something. Someone's going to be a lot more defensive, in that way than if you're asking questions. And then uh yeah, I think that work together, right? Collaborate, I
Hmm.
would add
There you
where you
go.
can.
All right. So I think that's the podcast for today. So
Did we solve
did we
the
solve
meeting
everything?
conundrum?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No more meetings that fail. There you go.
We're done. Check.
All right. Well, I'm sure we're going to continue the conversation in the community. So
Yes.
hopefully, the people that listen to this can give their feedback and their thoughts on different meeting scenarios and how to deal with them.
Well, and I would say too, I encourage people to comment because, like maybe they've tried these things that we're suggesting and they need
Yeah. Maybe it didn't work and
another
they need to come
suggestion.
up with
Maybe it
something
didn't
else.
work. Right. So
Yeah.
let's keep talking about it.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Gary.
All right. Thank
And
you.
thanks for listening. And we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.